What's up, guys? This is Jay from COI. So, I wanted to recap the Democratic debate that happened in South Carolina tonight. And first, though, I want to start off by asking you guys a question. Namely, because I have to be cautious of my own cynicism sometimes. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of believing nothing is real and everything's staged and we're living in the Matrix. But other times, my cynicism is often validated and turns out my my thoughts were correct. And so I'm going to have you ground me a little bit by giving me your opinions or your thoughts on this whole thing. Um, I'll just start off with the question, and that being, do you think Mike Bloomberg purchased a majority of the audience tonight in South Carolina? Um, so as I'm rewatching the debate to do this video, I noticed that the crowd would cheer for things that they typically wouldn't, or just in weird spots that I don't even know if it really helped Bloomberg, to be honest. I mean, I guess it did because it had to do with him and a pro Bloomberg stance. But it was more so the booing that I just couldn't wrap my head around. And I'll start off with the most noticeable one for me was Liz Warren brought up his sexual assault accusations, and the crowd booed her like overwhelmingly, like boo, shut up, we don't, you know. And it's like what? This is the Democratic Party. Um, I wouldn't even expect that out of the Republican Party, to be honest. But and in fact, that had me go look at the Republican Party's last debates in 2015, 2016. You know, the primaries then, and when sexual assault accusations were brought up against Donald Trump, there wasn't booing like that. Like this is worse than that. In that time, 2015, 2016 was like pre Me Too movement. This is after Me Too movement in a Democratic filled room. It just seemed very odd to me. And then there was a point when Bernie kind of he threw a little jab at Bloomberg, and he said, I know Mike Bloomberg's base is very strong. The problem is they're all billionaires, and there was just all of these boos. I'm like, why does South Carolina standing up for billionaires? It's South Carolina. No offense to South Carolina, but there's probably like maybe one billionaire in the entire state. You think they would be people just like the most of us in poor states that throw the old middle finger to the billionaires. I that really made me curious. And there's other moments too. If you watched it, maybe rewatch it because the first time I watched it, I didn't notice it. It came on the second time as I'm kind of really paying attention to the clips, and that didn't seem right. Well, that got me looking further into things, and then I noticed that the ticket prices for this debate were ungodly expensive, especially there again for just your average Democratic Party member in South Carolina. The tickets started off at $1,750, and they went up to $3,200. It's a lot of money for someone to pay to watch the complete shit show that was the Democratic debate tonight. And so yeah, I'm really curious. Like I said, most of this is because I think if Mike Bloomberg paid a majority of the audience, or even just a very large chunk of the audience to be there, I think this is incredibly wrong. I think this is another aspect of a billionaire trying to buy his way into stuff. You know, we saw it with New York when he was running. He bought the press. He bought everything. He bought his way into it, and now he's trying to do this in a grander stage, and it's incredibly disgusting. I'm curious how much CBS knew about it, what their part in it was. I don't know. Maybe none. Maybe none at all. Maybe they just hosted it. Someone else is the one who handled the arena, so to speak. Again, I couldn't tell you any of that, and in fact, I'm not even sure if I'm right. It's just it's a theory that I have at the moment, and I'm really curious what you guys think about that. Am I getting too conspiracy theorist on this, or am I do I have a point? Anyway, I'll get into the kind of winners losers. Um, First off, I'm going to start. at the bad end of the spectrum, the loser, the biggest loser of the night, and that's me for watching this piece of junk twice. No, no, the biggest loser was CBS. This was the worst debate I've ever seen, without a doubt. If you had to muddy your way through this abortion of a debate, you would come away thinking the same. Half of the time, you couldn't hear when someone was trying to make a point because they were being interrupted constantly. And then once there was like a flow of conversation, back and forth, the moderators would just stop and be like, okay, we're moving on. And they would move on to something that was maybe anecdotal or something completely opposite. And you could see that like, that 180 was not only messing with the candidates, but also messing with the people who were watching it. You were feeling some kind of way about a conversation they're having, and then boom, now we're talking about Bernie Sanders' talk about Cuba. What? What? How do we go from environment to that? But um, and there was a point in time there again when Buttigieg was going, he was attacking Biden and Sanders and saying, or no, I'm sorry, Trump and Sanders, and saying that they have this old ideology. And Sanders was given the opportunity to reply, and during his retort, Buttigieg just kept talking, and so you couldn't hear what Sanders was really saying, and you really couldn't hear what Buttigieg was saying either. Um, so it was just a complete shit show. Like I said, there was weird reactions from crowds. There was people just interjecting themselves when they didn't need to. Um, it was obviously like in a lot of ways as I was watching it, I noticed that Buttigieg was in so many ways just doing a filibuster against, namely Bernie Sanders. But yeah, whoever the moderators in this were the worst, and this is from every grand national election or a debate I've seen to local debates. This was the worst debate I've ever seen, and I think CBS should be ashamed of the job they did. I truly think my local high school could have put on a better debate. So we'll go to the winners, the positive side of it. I think Tom Steyer did really well. Tom Steyer seemed to be in his element, and you could tell like Tom Steyer was filling him some Tom Steyer tonight, and that was a good look for him. I think if that had been the Tom Steyer who showed up in Iowa, in New Hampshire, he wasn't technically in Nevada, but maybe he would have been if he would have been himself, because him being comfortable and him talking um, from more of an aggressive standpoint and what he wants to do, not just kissing Bernie and Elizabeth Warren's ass, you can kind of see, oh yeah, I want to vote for that guy. Before he kind of came off as like this Bernie Sanders light. And, it's like Bernie Sanders if he really, really cared about the environment and that's all he cared about was the environment. And you guys saw this different side of Tom Steyer. I thought he did pretty well. I was really impressed with him. I think, in fact, it's going to be enough to solidify him in the top three in South Carolina. Um, I think Joe Biden did fairly well. Um, my Joe Biden doing well is going to be the same reason I say that Bernie Sanders won. And the reason is because I don't think they hurt themselves that much. They came out of it fairly unscathed. And in positions that they are, being at 1 and 2, that's basically their job. Yes, Biden needs to kind of make a move to go to first, but not now. It's still pretty early. Um, if you would have taken away um, from what Biden can do in the future and how he's polling, if he wasn't polling as high as he was nationally, then yes, he would need to be making some moves. But he's not going anywhere for the near future. He's at number 2, and just not hurting himself on a national stage is fairly important for Biden's campaign, and Bernie as well. I love Bernie Sanders. I'm a big supporter of his. I don't think he was super impressive. I think he had a few things that were kind of important, and he's stuck on the Bernie line, and that's why we support him, is because he's committed to what he believes. And if you're watching these debates, you're saying, God, does he ever talk about anything else? No. That's why he's Bernie. That's why we support him, because he said these same things for the last 30, 40 years, and he actually believes them. Um, and that's what he did. And he didn't get tripped up. He just a lot of harm reduction going on. So I think he won, and I think Buttigieg did really well because Buttigieg played the kind of filibuster saboteur role. Obviously, Buttigieg knows he has no shot. I don't think Buttigieg is going to finish in the top four, to be honest. He might squeak out at four in South Carolina, but I don't think he's going to even do that. And I mean, Buttigieg is pretty much done, and I think his job is to be taken aim at other people, namely Bernie Sanders, which, like I said, he did try to do it, and it just came off more as annoying than anything else. And honestly, it made being objective about it, it made me really annoyed with Buttigieg more than it did with Sanders when he was talking through his retort. But I think for the game Buttigieg was trying to play, he did pretty well. Um, and the ones I was really disappointed in, obviously the first one is Liz Warren. I don't think she had nearly the performance that we've seen. It definitely wasn't the Nevada Liz that contrastly made that debate one of the best debates I've seen. It seemed like once she brought up the sexual assault accusations and she got kind of jabbed in the face, she was unwilling to stick her face back out again, and she just kind of slithered into a corner. And I say this by the way as someone who I'm not 100% Liz Warren, but I would vote for her over anyone else but Bernie at the moment. She is definitely my number two, and I just don't think. I think she stumbled a lot. I don't think she took a lot of chances. I think this is the time when she needs to take those chances. She doesn't have a lot of time left, is what I'm saying. And a lot of that and her funding depends on how well she does in South Carolina. And it does not seem like that's going to be, it's not going to be very good for her. Sadly, I think that we might have seen the last roar of Elizabeth Warren here. And then another one who I think is going to be gone before Elizabeth Warren is Amy Klobuchar. She did just awful. I think a majority of people are tired of Amy Klobuchar's. I'm going to stay in the middle. Don't look at my voting record because, yes, I voted a lot of times on the side of Republicans. I'm going to tell you that all of your plans suck, and I'm never going to actually give you a real plan. My biggest thing is I can win in Republican states. And look, if we want that, we got Bloomberg. If we want that, we kind of got Biden, honestly. But she doesn't have any fresh new ideas. This is a point in time in the Democratic debate where we want policy and we want ideas of policy. Now, we got that with Bernie and we got that with Elizabeth Warren. And it's time for the rest of these candidates to start showing up what policies they're talking about. And anything less than that is just unimpressive and kind of a time filler. That day when a candidate could go up there, stand on their soapbox, and just complain about things and have some sort of catchy um, tagline thrown in there, that day is over. Um, it doesn't work like that anymore. And Klobuchar, maybe there again, she should have swung for the fences. She should have brought out some policy. She should have said, "Hey, in contrast to what you want to do, I've got this idea, and this is going to work better." I think she would have made some big splashes, but she just didn't. And I think she's going to be done for as well. And I don't mind that one as much as I mind Elizabeth Warren. And then lastly, Mike Bloomberg. Bloomberg's just awful. I don't really know what he's doing besides just spending his money, which he could easily do. One note on Bloomberg is I think if you listen to the audience, he did okay. Uh, but there again, I think he paid for that audience, and he was just very uninspired. Um, there again, a guy who has said and done some really horrendous things, and he refuses to apologize for him. And even at that, my biggest issue with Bloomberg, and the reason I think he did the worst, is they brought up the fact that in New York, when Bloomberg was mayor, he banned trans fats and large sodas, right? Now, here's where, without a doubt, you are going to lose a majority of the people. When you try to control what they ingest. And seriously, because if you're going to be that way, if you're Mike Bloomberg and you're going to control what restaurants have trans fats, how much soda you can drink, that is the definition of a slippery slope. When does it when does it come after if you're a vapor? When does it come after your vaping? When does it go after candy or guns, which is more important in a lot of ways? Um, Video games, pornography, you name it. When does this become an issue? And as Americans, we don't want people controlling us. We're good enough on our own. We don't have all the problems that they say we do. We are adults and we're responsible for ourselves. We don't need Daddy Bloomberg to tell us what we can and cannot ingest into our body. At the same turn, when asked about legalizing marijuana, the farthest he would go was to criminalize it. Right? Makes no sense. Why would you do that? It's very disturbing the way that he's gonna play this thing. I don't think he really has a shot at winning the nomination. If he does, I'm personally one of those people who's just gonna be done as a Democrat. But I don't think he has a shot because obviously I'm just a jerk off behind a computer, and I can tell you without a doubt he will unequivocally lose to Bernie or to Donald Trump. I'm sure every other analyst and pundit could tell you the same thing. But anyway, more curious, honestly, about what you guys thought about the debate in itself, and more so what you think about the whole Bloomberg thing, buying the audience. Do you think I'm onto something, or am I just going down a rabbit hole with this one, and it was just a weird night? Really curious on your thoughts on that. And if you do think he did, tell me why you think it's problematic, why you don't have a problem with it. Maybe you don't. Anyway, curious to hear all the feedback. Anyway, you guys have a good evening.